Welcome to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. It is time to make nutrition part of the conversation. I'm your host, Christina Veselak, and I'm so glad you're here. Did you know that it's our brain's job to allow us to cope with stress gracefully? But to do that, it needs to be fed optimally. Have you ever wondered why so many committed people relapse or maybe even die? Why so many people on psychotropic medication still feel lousy and still have cravings? What if the missing piece is food, the right food? What if the right nutrients like amino acids or even eating protein every 4 hours could actually balance your brain chemistry and your mood without medication and support lasting recovery? In this podcast, we explore the powerful connection between feeding your brain well, mental health, relapse, and recovery from addiction. We will share insights from experts, inspiring recovery stories, and practical strategies you can use today. Whether you're in recovery, a healthcare professional, or someone passionate about emotional well being, this show is for you. Let's dive in and discover how fueling your body and brain with the right food, the right amino acids, and other key nutrients can fuel your transformation today. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Power Up Recovery with Nutrition, where we get to hear from practitioners in the field, giving hope to their clients and patients and transformational change. We hear from people's own struggle and their own victory over mental health challenges and addictive challenges using these wonderful tools. And we hear from researchers and scientists. Today, I have the delightful pleasure of having a conversation with Jayne Reynolds, who has been a student of mine now for several years and has become a dear friend. What she would like you all to know is Jayne Reynolds is an unapologetic harbinger of hope. Isn't that wonderful? I think so. A board certified holistic nutritionist, level 2 certified nutrition recovery coach. That's through the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. And Amen Clinic certified brain health professional. She's on a mission to change how we approach mental health, starting with what's on our plates. Lady after my own heart. Jayne helps individuals break free from anxiety and low mood using food first strategies, amino acid therapy, and sustainable lifestyle shifts. I want to add to that Jayne is one of the most brilliant functional nutritionists I have ever come across. And her ability to dive deep into the research and pull out from it usable nuggets of information is really quite remarkable. So I'm delighted to introduce you all to Jayne Reynolds.
Thank
Welcome,
you so
Jayne.
much. Thank you for having me, Christina. It's so kind. All your little add-ins there. You make me cry before we've even started the whole thing. I'm so grateful to be here today.
Well, you're so welcome. And one of the things I really, really admire about you is how you've used your own struggles with mental health and physical health throughout your entire life
Hmm.
to learn and to keep learning and to bring healing to yourself, your family members, and now your clients. So, can you share a little bit of that journey with us?
Absolutely. It started oh golly, my kid is like 28 years old now. So after her birth, I had an E. coli infection and they hospitalized me for that. And they gave me 7 bags of antibiotics over the course of 3 days. And I hate to say that we didn't know back then because it makes me feel old, but we did not know about reseeding the gut. And so they decimated my gut bacteria and sent me home. And I did not know that was the cause of the problem. But a couple of weeks after that, the anxiety attacks started, and they were really mild in the beginning, just sort of little episodes of worry. And I did go and talk to my doctor about it, and he was 70, white coat, 70-year-old male, going, there, dear, you've just had a baby, so what do you expect? Your hormones are probably all screwed up. You're tired, she's not sleeping, it's no wonder you don't feel great. And that just started this journey of depression and anxiety that escalated over 7 years till I was completely debilitated in bed most of my days, having anxiety attacks that were lasting an hour, hour and a half, 3 or 4 times a day, and
Mm.
just wanting to go to sleep and wanting to give up. Like I didn't know what
Right.
else to do. I was doing therapy. I was on benzodiazepines. I was on an SSRI, and none of those things were fixing it. And a friend reached out and said, "Listen, I see you trying all these conventional ways of going about finding healing, but you don't seem like you're having much success. How about you talk to my naturopath?" And she was the first person who she did amino acid testing with me, neurotransmitter testing, and then got me on tyrosine. It was not my
Hmm.
serotonin pathway, despite all my symptoms. It was not my serotonin pathway that was mixed up. And that helped. It helped some. But another practitioner suggested that I go gluten-free, and it took me about 2 weeks to do it. It wasn't for my mind, it was because I was having so many gut symptoms. And I went gluten-free, and about 7 days later, I woke up one day and went, I haven't had a panic attack for a week. And that was just unheard of. They were unrelenting and they'd been going on for 7 years. So to have switched something that changed it in 7 days was nothing short of a miracle. And I had prayed for that miracle for 7 years. So to have that answer was just amazing. And it sent me down this rabbit hole of what else don't I know? What else don't I understand about how my body works and how it's impacting the way that my brain functions? And once you start learning all of that, you go, well, you start looking around you and going, yeah, I see you're struggling with anxiety. Why are you drinking 4 Red Bulls a day? Why are you, maybe you have a gluten sensitivity and you don't know about it. Maybe you have a dairy sensitivity. How can I help you to figure out what
Hmm.
your next steps are? You just can't keep that kind of information to yourself because it's been
No,
life-changing.
no.
Yeah.
Well, and that's was at the beginning of my journey as well, with my nutritionist saying, well, you don't have all the symptoms, i.e., you're not skin and bones, but go off gluten for a week and see what changes.
Hmm.
And my whole life turned right side up, and I
Right.
felt alive for the first time in my life at the
Hmm.
age of 30.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing what an impact such a tiny protein can have on the
Uh-uh.
body. It really
Oh,
is.
it's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
So that started your journey. And
Hmm.
then what else have you discovered along the way?
Oh, all kinds of things. One of the best things, and I tell people this all the time when they're looking for nutrition education on this topic, I tell them about the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition, not just because you have such an amazing grasp on all of these tiny little proteins and how we can use them to shore up our mental health, which is amazing. The pro-recovery diet that everybody talks about inside the Academy too, the basic principles that apply across the board. If you listen to Dr. Amen or anybody else like that, they will talk about a lot of those principles too. But it's been way more than that. Getting into the academy, I learned so much about other triggers that I had dealt with from probably my whole life without knowing. Um, I found out my thyroid was probably a little subclinically off, and a tiny dose of thyroid medication took away all my social anxiety that I had had for years. I was struggling with pyroloric symptoms without even knowing it. So a little B6 and a little zinc made the world of difference. It undid a ton of my worry about going into different places and situations and just lifted everything up. And I know now, right, that our body needs B6 and they need zinc. And I tell people all the time, your body is like a giant KitchenAid mixer standing on the kitchen counter. We put all of these ingredients in, they're individual things that we're putting in, and then we turn out something else. And your body's the same way. We put all of these nutrients in. You're not just talking about your macros, but we're talking about all your magnesium and zinc and potassium and calcium. All of these things impact the way that your brain functions. And then your body can use those nutrients and ingredients to turn out things like your neurotransmitters or, healthy blood sugar balance or healthy blood pressure balance, and all of these different
Mhm.
pieces support adrenal health, which is so impactful on our emotional well-being. So yeah, I talk to people about that all the time. There were just so many different pieces. Learning about the impact of omega-6 deficiencies, because in the nutrition world, we're always talking so much about how, oh, we have too much omega-6 in America. We have too much omega-6. It's inflammatory. You don't need it. And that is a tiny piece of the puzzle. We actually do need it. We just don't need it in an inflammatory state. And when you've got a specific genetic history, as I do, I have a Gaelic history, my family's all Welsh, then there's a high risk for addiction and issues like that. And just dealing with that little bit of omega-6, can help offset that. And when I drop these little nuggets and gems when I'm talking to people, they're like, I did not know that. I did not know that. I did not like just like, yes,
It's
we
kind of
need to
fun,
feed
isn't it?
ourselves. It is fun. We really need to feed ourselves.
We really do. And
Yes.
you talked about the GLA, gamma-linolenic acid, which is, derived from the omega sixes. That's also part of my story because my father was from Denmark, my mother was from England, so I have that Scandinavian and probably Gaelic heritage,
Yep.
because everybody's intermingled and
Yep.
intermarried. And so I was born with a deep, dark depression
Hmm.
that was only relieved by alcohol. Fortunately, I was also allergic to alcohol. So a whole glass of beer put me to sleep, but three-quarters of it made the depression go away temporarily.
Hmm.
And this was like a game changer for me when I discovered that. Read 7 Weeks to Sobriety in 1993 and switched from alcohol to evening primrose oil.
What a switch.
It doesn't taste as good, but it's so much more effective.
No, right. And to that point, if we were educating well in our recovery circles about not switching from alcohol to sugar or nicotine to sugar, because that does taste good, but we actually got these folks on a little GLA, we might be able to make a profound difference without driving a new addiction.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or just protein.
Oh, just protein every 3 hours. And I can't tell you, I was talking to somebody the other day about just, having coaching sessions, and we go through all the labs or my assessments, my intake assessments. And I usually give somebody 3 points to take away so that they've got some steps to work on before they decide
Uh-huh.
to work with me. The number of times that I've said, my first recommendation is you need to get your kid on protein 3 times a day. And in this particular case, I recommended take gluten out of their diet as well. I followed up with them a week later and said, okay, are you ready to engage in a full coaching program with me? And they said, no, thank you. Those two things fixed my kid. Right? It isn't rocket science. When you get the pieces in place, it's really actually radically simple and it can make a fundamental difference. That kid is now going to be able to sit in class. They're going to be able to learn better. They're going to have a better experience in school. They're going to have a better experience in college and be able to do so many more things than they could when they were bouncing off the walls and struggling with their focus and concentration.
Well, and mom and dad's marriage is going to be better because it's less
Yes.
stressed.
Hmm.
And mom's going to be better because she's less stressed.
Yes.
And it just trickles through the entire family system. So these are game changers, life changers, family changers. And I think that's why both you and I are so passionate about it and why
Hmm.
we're sitting here talking about it today.
Absolutely. And it's fun. It's fun to nerd out on the topic.
Well, that is so true. So there's a lot that people don't understand about gluten.
Hmm.
When I went gluten free almost 40 years ago now, nobody knew anything about it. There
Hmm.
were like two little cookbooks from the UK because that's where it was first discovered as a thing in World War II. And so I did all my baking from these two little UK cookbooks, and I would eat out and I would, be very careful about what I ate because I had to be. And I would tell the waitress, she'd say, "What type of bread do you want?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm allergic to wheat, so no bread." And she said, "Well, I have white bread." And sometimes I was snarky, not always.
Mm.
And but
You,
sometimes I
Christina.
was snarky, and I would say, you know, uh, white bread comes from wheat too.
Hmm.
And the poor server would look at me blankly.
Hmm. Oh, but croutons are okay, right? No. Okay, that's okay. I'll just pick them off your salad. No. please take it back and please start over. And I understand like eating out is probably one of the hardest things to deal with, right? When you're dealing with those
Yes.
issues, because celiac disease and even non-celiac gluten sensitivity can have such a strong reaction. I've met people who have shared a desk at work. Somebody ate their sandwich, touched the keyboard. The person with celiac comes back, touches the keyboard, and are catastrophically ill for the next 2 weeks. So it can be that serious, and eating in a restaurant where they don't have dedicated space, dedicated fryers, it can be a very difficult thing to do. And I don't expect the entire world to understand this world that we are in, but they don't understand. They don't understand that cheese is also milk. Like it's just,
Right. Right.
we just can I put the cheese on the salad? No, when I said no dairy, I really meant like nothing. If it comes out of an udder, oh, so you couldn't have eggs then? No, eggs don't come out of an udder. Like it's just trying to help people understand the most basic and rudimentary things about
Mhm.
nutrition and the food that's on their plates. That we don't know. We don't understand where our food comes from.
No, we don't. And this is, at least now, there is a lot more education for restaurant workers.
Yes.
I found in the UK that enough people died that from eating food that they're allergic to because the wait staff just wasn't paying enough attention,
Hmm.
that it's now become a huge thing in the UK. Here, it's not a huge thing, I think, because we're a much bigger country, but there is much more training. And I appreciate when the wait staff asks me, are you full-blown allergic or is it more as a sensitivity because
Yes.
this is fried in the same oil as?
Hmm.
And I appreciate that
Yes.
awareness.
Yes, I do too. And it's gotten nearly impossible for me. Got the opposite problem when I go back to the UK now. It's because I understand what I can tolerate and what I can't tolerate, but they have a black and white policy. So if it has even touched
Uh,
it, if it's gone anywhere near it, you can't eat it. We will not serve it to you. We won't take the risk. And I understand that, but it's kind of swung the other way of making it
Sure.
difficult on the other side to order again. So we have a restaurant here in Phoenix in the Mesa area called Intentional Foods, and they keep the top
Oh,
8 food allergens out of every recipe in that kitchen because he has a kid with anaphylaxis. And it has been amazing. The questions they were asking were, what if, right? What if something
uh-huh.
had gone wrong at this restaurant? What if she'd been exposed? And so they created Intentional Foods, and it's blown up here in the Valley because so many people with allergies know they can go there and eat, and Chef Ned will take care of them. So shout out to Chef
Oh,
Ned. But it's a really safe place to go and eat, and they serve pretty good food too. Desserts as well for those who are struggling.
yum.
Yum is right.
Because I do get a little tired of going to restaurants and there's
Uh-huh.
these wonderful looking desserts, you
Uh-huh.
know, on the menu. And it's like, it'd be nice to have a little treat, just
Yes.
a little treat.
Just a bite at the
And
end of your meal, right?
right.
Yeah.
Um, and most of the time it's impossible.
Yes. Yeah. Dessert is it keeps me it keeps my weight at a healthy point. Let's just say that. Grateful
Mine
for the
too.
things. Yes.
It's like, well, this really isn't good for me. So it's
Right.
probably much better for my health that I
Right.
can't have any. But
Right.
oh,
I know. And there is so many replacements now, and that's one of the things. I just did a speech on Friday at a symposium, and we were talking about being that, they were asking what's the best way to eat keto, vegan, whatever it is. And I
mhm,
was like, you can do those things really, really wrong. Just because it's vegan doesn't mean you're not eating dirty vegan, right? Like it could be gluten-free and dairy-free and have so much sugar in it that you are just causing yourself a world of hurt down the path.
that's right. That's right.
Working with
Or
you.
be totally nutrient deficient,
Oh, yes, absolutely
devoid
no
of
nutrients
nutrients.
because it's
Yeah.
still highly processed food.
Hmm.
So we get back to basics of shopping around the perimeter of the store, meat, fruit, and veg, healthy oils. Again, not rocket science, but keeping that protein. And I actually switched and changed the way that I work with people after going through your program, because I would start with like figuring out where their aminos were off and how we needed to support them. But I'm telling you now, I just get them on protein every 3 hours for the first
Mm,
couple of weeks that I'm working with them because so many symptoms go away in that first couple of weeks that I would be helping them. Don't want to say treating because we're not
mhm,
treating, but I would not be helping them the right way because so many symptoms were simply based on the diet that they were eating. And so we can take out a lot of that volatility by simply changing to protein 3 times a day and then figuring out where their real true root symptoms are flaring up and the things that we need to adjust and change. It's that profound. I used to start with delayed food allergy testing too. We get to that, but I'm like, in the meantime, while we're waiting for those results to come back, let's do protein 3 times a day. Let's start working on reducing those added sugars because
mhm.
it has such a profound impact on mental health. I know none of that is gluten. Like we got on here to talk about those
Right.
things, but it is so absolutely crucial to it's changed. It's fundamentally changed the way I work.
Absolutely. And mine too.
Hmm.
Because I didn't know this when I became a therapist 40 years ago. But the more I did, it was so easy. It's like I started asking my clients, then, what did you eat today? And what did you eat yesterday?
Hmm.
And began to be horrified because it
Yes.
was clear that they had starving brains.
Yes.
And none of us are ever taught in school to ask our clients what they eat,
No,
you know,
no, we are
and
not.
it is that protein that the sugar balance is so foundational. But getting back to gluten and some of the technicalities, we know that gluten itself can triggers its own response, right?
Hmm.
But there's also friendly fire that happens. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that?
Just as in the sort of autoimmune response that can happen with gluten. Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. So the body can very easily mistake gluten proteins, and gluten is not the only protein inside wheat that we have a problem with. So let's be clear about that to start with. It's not the only one. There's gliadin as well, which can cause a lot of problems. But when the body looks at that, it can look awfully similar to our own human tissue. And when the body's immune system is overreacting, it can start reacting to that gluten protein every time we eat it and trigger problems. That tends to be more of that non-gluten celiac sensitivity. And then in celiac disease, when that's happening, it's actually causing an incredible amount of inflammation inside the small intestine and damage to the small
Hmm.
intestine. And so the small intestine has these finger-like projections inside it called villi, and on top of those, a microvilli. We have the absorptive capacity of about the size of a tennis court inside our digestive tract. If we laid it all
Amazing.
out, it is just amazing. And what happens when all that inflammation starts happening inside there, those fingers become a mat. And so all of this ability to absorb our nutrients goes away, and we're just stuck with this little bit on the top. So when we've got folks struggling with celiac disease, they are ending up to be typically very nutrient deficient and oftentimes don't know it. And those nutrients, as we talked about right at the very beginning, things like zinc and our minerals are needed, vitamin B6 are needed for making our neurotransmitters. So there is a direct correlation between people with, and they've done studies and shown this for kids as well, that if they have celiac disease, diagnosed or undiagnosed, they can see the depressive and anxious outcomes that are connected with the two pieces. But that is equally accurate for non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where you've got this sort of autoimmune is the celiac piece, but you've got this immune response going on.
Jane, this was actually me
Mm.
because I had been diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 2,
Oh
because
wow.
apparently I was skin and bones and almost died.
Okay.
But they didn't know this was in Canada, in the just around 1958. They didn't know the gluten connection at that point in time. And so I grew up eating gluten. I started putting on weight at the age of 8 because I was so nutrient deprived. My body needed to turn everything into fat to store energy.
Mm.
And by the time I was 30, I was barely functioning. I ate beautifully. My mother had taught me well. I, wanted to control my weight. So I had a very good diet. I was eating
Hmm.
all the right foods. And yet was profoundly nutrient deficient because it wasn't getting in.
Yes.
I was one of those people that had to be on amino acids for 10 years rather than just 10 months because I was
Right.
so nutrient deprived.
Right. Yeah, it causes a profound effect inside the digestive tract. And if your belly's not well, then your brain is not well. And we see this played out too, because we have a better understanding of celiac disease today. We know better to look for it most of the time. About 1% of the population has celiac disease, but they reckon that about 80% of people go undiagnosed and don't even know they have it. My grandfather was in his 70s when they caught it and diagnosed it, and his brother had it. His brother was a classic World War II, took out all the rations and it made things better and put them back, at the end of the war and get sick again and figure out that there is a connection between what we're eating. And I remember, oh my gosh, I remember going to Uncle Jim's and Auntie Reen's and she would bake gluten-free for all of us and it was the most awful food. It lacked, any density or it was just like a rock. It's just like, have a scone,
Hmm.
have a sandwich. And we're like, oh, no, thank you. Because it was so bad. But it was protecting Uncle Jim. My grandfather was then diagnosed in his 70s. So a really long time of nutrient deficient damage that's taking place over that course of that time.
Yes.
But now we have studies, and this came out of the work of Dr. Karizian, which just blew my mind and made so much sense to me. I've had the test done. I don't even have the gene for celiac disease. So they told me, you'll be fine, you won't get it. But I have this severe reaction to it, and my daughter has a severe reaction to it. I found out reading Dr. Karizian's work that there is a different type of transglutaminase, that impacts the brain. So it might not be
Mhm.
triggering inflammation inside the digestive tract, but it can be triggering inflammation inside the brain. I think they're called the synapsins, is the piece that it causes the inflammation in, and it can trigger these depressive and anxious symptoms. And then we can get cross reactivity just because, the body's weird and wonderful. It looks at stuff and it goes, well, I think that's gluten, but I don't know if it is, but it's really corn or it's oats or even some forms of coffee. And it triggers
Yeah.
that same type of inflammation inside the brain and triggers this anxiety and depression. It can even trigger, we've got studies showing that it's linked with schizophrenic symptoms. So, I have a client who came to me a few months ago and said, I'm having more symptoms again and I don't understand why. And I said, I was just asked, they'll say, I eat healthy, right? Okay, can you tell me what healthy is? And can you give me a 24-hour food recall? Because you might think corn dogs are healthy and I don't. So um, she said, well, I'm really good. I'm gluten free. And then I'll just have Ezekiel toast like 2 or 3 times a
Right.
week. And I said, well, Ezekiel toast is got gluten in it. And she said, but it's sprouted. And I was like, yes, but that doesn't take the gluten out. So
Right.
sometimes we're, exacerbating our symptoms without even, again, that goes back to we don't even know what we're putting inside of our bodies. We think we're making the right choices. But it's hard sometimes. Even when we know what we're doing, we still make mistakes.
Well, we do. What is that testing? How can you find out if you have that transglutamase reaction in your brain?
Yeah, there's only one lab here in the US, and I believe it's Cyrix Labs that does a
Uh-huh.
test for all of the, I think it's T2, T3, and T6 are the three different transglutaminases. You have to quote me on that. But there's a whole package, and they will look at all of them to see if there's reactivity inside your body to gluten, and does it just cover the gut, but also covers the brain as well.
That's incredibly useful. I'm actually thinking about doing that test for myself because I'm really curious.
Now, the only curiosity I had was whether or not, and I was thinking about this the other day, do you need to be eating gluten? Because I know you need to be eating gluten to be tested for celiac disease. So do you need to still have gluten in your diet in order to be able to take that test and have it show up positive to see if something's going on? And, in in the case of, for example, my middle kid who has such extreme reactions to
Mhm.
wheat and gluten and gliadin, it is not healthy or safe for her to try that just to get an answer on a lab.
So, Cyrix Labs
Yes.
to test for other ways that gluten may be impacting you.
Yes. And we also do, we talked a little bit, there's a difference between that autoimmune response in the body and a delayed food sensitivity. So we
Hmm.
also do delayed food sensitivity testing. Now, you can do an elimination diet, and it's certainly where I started, right? I took out gluten for 2 weeks, and then I was like amazed by the changes, and I kept it out. And then that same friend who had recommended help said, dairy and gluten proteins are fairly similar. You might not tolerate dairy well as well. It's like, flipping heck, what am I going to eat? Like, if I'm going to be gone, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I refused to take it out in the beginning just because it was like I didn't want to make
Right.
so many
It's so
changes
hard.
all at once.
Right.
But I did ask, I went then to my naturopath and I said, I figured out gluten's a problem. Do you do any kind of testing? And she said, oh, absolutely. We can do delayed food sensitivity testing for you. And that came back with gluten, dairy, eggs, Brazil nuts, and beef. And so I had to keep I had to keep the Brazil nuts and the beef out for a while. And then I was able to put them back in. And all of these issues, tend to have with the delayed food sensitivity, it means we need to do work on the gut. It doesn't mean those foods necessarily, if
Hmm.
you've got a long list of foods that need to come out, that we're going to keep them out forever and ever and always, or that
Right.
you can't indulge and it is an indulgence, that you can't indulge in something once a month. Um, but it's about getting the gut healed to a place where it is okay enough to handle some of those assaults from time to time,
Yeah.
right? So, over the years, I've probably done that delayed food sensitivity test, maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years, 20 years. Golly, it's 20 years. Yeah, I've probably done it 3 or 4 times. Just every now and again, I'll be like, I can't shake these symptoms. I think I'm about at that place. I've had a head cold or an ear infection 4 times this year. And I'm going,
Oh,
that was happening before when I had a new food sensitivity. So it's probably time to test, figure out what it is, because it lowers, when you take those food sensitivities out, it lowers that level of inflammation and
yes, it
immune
does.
response inside the body and the immune stress so that your body is
Calms everything down.
calms everything down. I talk to my clients about it being like a cup. Like you have a delayed food sensitivity to gluten, and then to dairy, and then to eggs, and then maybe to nuts, and then to beans, and you spilling over, and your body, it can tolerate this. If we can get that level of stress down on the body, then it can tolerate you getting a cold, and it will deal with it a whole lot better. And it'll tolerate you getting exposed to something from the grandkids and coming back down again, without it turning into this full-blown thing going on inside your
Hmm.
body. Um, but the delayed food sensitivity, those immune responses are, I joke with people that they're like shaman toilet paper. They are very, very long and very, very strong, and they don't break down very easily inside the body. They take about 28 days to break down. So if you're going to take a food out, then you want to probably take it out for 2 to 4 weeks, in order to get it all out of your system. And that
Hmm.
means no cross-contamination anywhere. Struggle I have now with just doing an elimination diet is if you take out gluten, but you also have a serious dairy sensitivity, then how do you know? You go, oh, well, I've still got the same symptoms, so I'm putting gluten back in, and then I'm going to take dairy out, but I'm still having the same symptoms, so I'm going to put dairy back in because everything's reacting inside your body. And I've
That's right.
had clients come back with 120 out of 180 foods on their panel as sensitivities. How in the world do you navigate and figure out which ones
No,
it is at that stage? You can't.
you just can't.
No.
And this is where the testing is really useful.
Yes. Really, really helpful. Finger prick test. We can do a blood draw if you want to. Send the results off. We have the labs in and we get the results within about 2 weeks. And so if you think I've done the math, it would take you about 14 years to take out 180 foods and put them back in again. So why do you want to struggle for that long? Let's just get you the answers in a couple of weeks and make some biochemically individual uh, choices for your lifestyle and for your
Hmm.
health.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. It's also really interesting and useful to remember that these food sensitivities, unless you really have the genetic thing, these food sensitivities don't have to be for life.
No, they
That
don't.
as we heal our gut, as we heal ourselves, they can come and go, but they can mostly go.
Hmm.
And I know I had a family member who had a severe mental illness caused by gluten and casein sensitivity
Hmm.
and had to absolutely remove all of this from her diet as a teenager, which was very difficult for several years. And then she brought in homeopathy, and then she brought in acupuncture, and
Hmm.
then she worked on her gut, and then she
Hmm.
brought in, different nutrients, and found that she could, either first by mistake and then on purpose, expose herself to these foods and not have a psychiatric reaction, not have a
Yeah.
psychiatric emergency, and that was wonderful. And then she, of course, overdid it because it was so wonderful and
Hmm.
found that while she wasn't being psychiatrically impacted anymore, she had inflammation and she had pain and she had bloating and she had
Hmm.
fatigue, and that it was just better to keep them out.
Yes.
But she no longer had to be obsessive about keeping them out the way she
Yes.
had before.
Yes. And you bring up a really good point too about this is one of those other things that I learned through being in your program was about the profound impact that acupuncture can have on some of those allergies and sensitivities. The body is a weird and wonderful thing. And so you can go through emotional trauma and your body is you're going through this emotional trauma and you're leaning into this food group to help appease your emotions in the middle of that. And all of a sudden, that is now somehow in your brain all jumbled up and you are having sensitivities to a food because of an emotional thing that you went through. And so going and having I went through the whole acupuncture program, all the different sessions. Remind me because it's escaped my brain right now.
NAET.
NAET acupuncture, yes. Went and did that whole thing. I had the weirdest symptoms come up as we went through that process of just we'd go and clear my body of all this stuck, gluten sensitivity or stuck nut sensitivity or stuck whatever it was. My whole body calmed down through that whole process. I just don't feel nearly as reactive to foods across the board. And there are a couple of
Mhm.
them that I would like to go back and have a couple more sessions with those specific
Mhm.
foods. But just doing the whole program across the board, pet sensitivities tied in with a food sensitivity, tied in with a plant sensitivity, like real allergies, all of that just muddling up in the body and getting your whole system getting its wires crossed about what is dangerous and what's not dangerous. And so the NAET was really just another helpful step in the journey. It was a financial commitment and it was really a commitment. When you were talking about avoiding minerals for 24 hours after you've had your treatment in order to keep them clear, the minerals are in everything. Like don't touch the doorknobs, don't touch your metal glasses, don't touch, don't brush your teeth with, the whole thing was an interesting experience. But it was incredibly helpful and beneficial for me. And to the point where like dairy is one of my more serious problems. But we were just away on vacation. This might be why I came down with a cold, actually, thinking about it in retrospect.
Yeah.
Um, but I picked a restaurant that had gluten-free and vegan biscuits, and then they made sandwiches with them, breakfast biscuits, and we were meeting somebody for brunch. And so I've picked through all of Seattle's finest offerings, trying to find safe options for us. And we get there and they were like, well, they're either gluten-free or they're vegan, but they aren't both. So you have to pick your poison. And I was like, uh, I'll take the butter. Take the butter for 100, Alex. Right. So I only had half my uh uh biscuit, but I actually tolerated it incredibly well. And I just
Yeah.
don't know. I don't want to go pushing it and pushing my
Right.
boundaries, but I did tolerate it pretty well. I was really stunned. I didn't have heartburn. I didn't have digestive issues. I didn't, none of it. My whole body was a whole lot calmer. And I think that's in part due to the NAET and the work we've been doing on my gut because of mold exposure and some other pieces. So there's a whole, like, it's been
Mhm.
all of this is a journey, right? It's never about perfection. We never reach perfection. It's always just about progress and then having the right tools to handle each new thing that comes up. You can go back and say, okay, I'm having this again. What is the thing that I'm missing? What tools do I have in my toolbox to help me to figure this next step out that I have to work my way through?
Right. Right. Well, this has been a delightful conversation.
It's always a delight to talk to you, Christina. You're one of my favorite people.
Ah, thank you. Well, likewise, Jane. Anything else before we end for the day?
Honestly, I want to give a plug and a shout out. I feel like one of the most important things that I can do is bring hope. And we were talking about this right before we got on our call
That's
today. And that is, we're walking around in this kind of haze of depression and anxiety. If you read any statistics on the news, and they're constantly talking about our teen suicide rates, we have homicide, suicide, we have all of these mental health disorders. We've got inpatient facilities. We've got drug and addiction issues. All of these things are tied up with the way that our brain is functioning or coping with what's going on in the world around us. And, I have my moments where I'm not sure whether the message is being heard. But I had a conversation with somebody recently who actually said to me, it was very profound. She asked me what I did. I told her what I did. And she said, "Oh my goodness." She said, "I wish I had met you 7 years ago because I
mm,
felt like something was off with my daughter's diet. Something was causing her depression, but we lost her to suicide. You can't quit because I need people like you out there sharing the message of hope with others. So if one person is impacted, then I can't give up. If one person is changed, then I can't give up." And one of the most helpful things that I've been through in my education, other than developing this profound understanding of how the body works and how the nutrients impact our body and how that's tied in with traditional Chinese medicine and how it beautifully all fits together, is
great.
going through the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition because
So
it
glad.
gave me so many of those missing pieces. I was just talking to somebody the other day who is at a recovery facility and saying, if you're going to pick a next education program, you need to pick the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition because you're going to take away so much understanding, not only of all the neurotransmitter pathways, how the nutrients impact those, but also this fundamental understanding of all of these ongoing, like, well, just refreshing myself the other day. I have an upcoming podcast on the endorphins in the opioid system, and so all of these different nuances and how to help in a very, very practical way. And when it's beyond your scope and who else you can bring in,
Mhm.
who are our resources, how we're part of a team. I learned so much of that from you and shifted and changed the way I was practicing because of what I learned at the academy. I just think it's a bit of a hidden gem at the moment, but we're working on getting it out there. But it is a gem of a program and really, really helpful. And it helps me to bring hope in a way that's beneficial for my clients. So I'm appreciative.
Well, Jane, thank you. It really makes my heart sing as well because I do it for the same reason you do it, to
Hmm.
save lives,
Hmm.
because too many people have died. Too many people have died because this information is not widely known.
Hmm.
And so I do my best. So it really helps me to know that it's making a difference in other people's lives as well.
Yep. You're taking your torch and lighting all our candles. And in the end, all those candles will bring light and hope in a dark world. So I am hopeful for the changes that, and we're seeing shifts and changes come.
You,
And so
yeah.
I am optimistic. 20 years ago when I started doing this, those resources weren't out there. Nobody was talking about mental health. It was still sort of shrouded in shame and we wanted to hide it away. And I think there's a lot more conversation around that topic today, and anything that moves us in the right direction is good. It's good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And you're certainly doing your bit.
Thank you very much, Christina. Thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for being with us today and enjoying this delightful and very edifying conversation with Jayne Reynolds. If you enjoyed this, please push the like button and the subscribe button and share it with people who you think would also enjoy and benefit from these conversations. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. I'm Christina Veselak, your host, and I hope today's episode has inspired and equipped you with new insights and tools to support your recovery journey or practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who could benefit from the knowledge shared here. Stay connected with us for more episodes filled with practical advice, expert wisdom, and inspiring recovery stories. Remember, nutrition is a powerful tool in mental health and relapse prevention. Power up your recovery today. I'm Christina Veselak, and I'll see you next time.